Why most people never escape. Most people don't fail because they lack potential. They fail because the system slowly trains them to accept limitation as reality. Over time, survival replaces ambition, comfort replaces curiosity, fear replaces independent thinking. And eventually, people become so psychologically adapted to average lives that the idea of true freedom starts feeling unrealistic instead of achievable. That's the trap. The system doesn't need to physically stop people from escaping. It only needs to keep them distracted, financially pressured, emotionally exhausted, and afraid of uncertainty long enough for them to stop trying on their own. If you've ever felt like modern life quietly conditions people to settle for less than they're capable of, subscribe and stay close. Because once you understand why most people never escape, you also begin understanding what separates the few who eventually do. Most people never escape because they are conditioned to survive. Not to think independently. That conditioning begins early. Follow instructions, avoid mistakes, seek approval, stay realistic, choose security. And over time, those ideas become deeply embedded psychological patterns. The average person stops asking, "What do I truly want?" and starts asking, "What feels safe enough to avoid losing everything?" That shift changes entire lives, because freedom usually requires uncertainty, financial uncertainty, social uncertainty, emotional uncertainty. And most people are trained to fear uncertainty more than they fear unhappiness itself. That's why millions remain trapped in routines they secretly dislike, not because they enjoy the system, because dependency slowly becomes normalized. Look carefully at how modern life operates. Most people wake up already under pressure. Rent, debt, bills, inflation, career stress, social expectations. That constant pressure consumes mental energy, and mentally exhausted people rarely think strategically about escape. They think about immediate relief. How to survive the week, how to reduce stress temporarily, how to avoid instability. The system benefits from that short-term thinking, because people trapped in survival mode become easier to predict, easier to influence, easier to employ, easier to control emotionally. And over time, many people unconsciously trade freedom for familiarity, even if familiarity is making them miserable. That's the real psychological prison. Not physical barriers, mental conditioning. People become emotionally attached to routines that slowly destroy their potential because those routines feel predictable, and predictable feels safe. This is also why so many people sabotage themselves the moment opportunities appear. Starting a business feels risky, investing feels uncertain, changing environments feels uncomfortable, thinking differently invites criticism. So many retreat back into familiar patterns immediately. Not because they are incapable of growth, because the mind prefers familiar suffering over unfamiliar uncertainty. That's one of the darkest truths about human psychology. People often tolerate years of dissatisfaction simply because change feels emotionally dangerous, and the system quietly reinforces this fear constantly. Society praises conformity, rewards obedience, punishes unconventional thinking socially. The person chasing independence gets called unrealistic. The person questioning systems gets called negative. The person refusing average paths gets labeled arrogant or unstable. Why? Because independent thinkers disrupt social comfort. They force people to confront possibilities they secretly abandon inside themselves. And that creates psychological discomfort. So many people attack freedom externally while secretly craving it internally. That contradiction exists everywhere. The truth is, escaping requires more than motivation. Motivation fades quickly, else requires psychological reconstruction. You must learn to tolerate uncertainty, learn to think independently, learn emotional discipline, learn delayed gratification, learn how to operate without constant external validation. Because the moment someone stops needing approval from systems designed to keep them average, their behavior changes completely. This is also why environment matters so much. Most people are surrounded by individuals trapped inside the exact same thinking patterns: fear-based decisions, consumer mentality, short-term thinking, emotional dependency on comfort, and environments shape identity silently. Spend enough years around limitation, and limitation starts feeling normal. Spend enough years around fear, and risk starts feeling irrational. That's why many people never escape even after recognizing the problem intellectually. Awareness alone is not enough. You must become psychologically different from the environment trying to shape you. And that transformation is uncomfortable, lonely sometimes, misunderstood often. Because the moment you stop thinking like the crowd, you stop fitting comfortably inside systems built for the crowd. That's where the separation begins. The average person waits for permission to change life. The few who escape eventually realize nobody is coming to grant them freedom. They must build it themselves. The harsh reality is that most people never escape because comfort becomes more important than freedom. Not comfort in the sense of happiness, comfort in the sense of predictability. A predictable paycheck, a predictable routine, a predictable identity, a predictable life. even if that life feels empty internally, because uncertainty terrifies the human mind, and systems built around control understand this perfectly. That's why modern society constantly encourages people to seek security first and awareness second. Stay realistic, don't take risks, be careful, lower expectations, avoid failure. On the surface, that advice sounds responsible, but over time, excessive caution slowly kills ambition. People stop imagining bigger possibilities for themselves, stop questioning the environments trapping them, stop believing escape is realistic at all. And eventually, limitation becomes identity. That's the point where the system no longer needs to control someone externally. The person begins controlling themselves through fear automatically. Fear of losing income, fear of judgment, fear of instability, fear of standing alone, fear of uncertainty. And fear is one of the most effective prisons ever created because most people never realize how deeply it shapes their decisions. Look at how many people spend decades delaying their real lives, waiting for the right time, waiting for more certainty, waiting for approval, waiting until fear disappears. But fear rarely disappears first. Action usually comes before confidence. And that's why the few who escape often appear irrational to average people initially. They leave predictable environments, take uncomfortable risks, think independently, refuse social conditioning, operate without constant validation. From the outside, it looks dangerous. From the inside, it feels necessary. Because eventually, some people become more afraid of wasting life than failing publicly. That psychological shift changes everything. The system depends on people remaining mentally obedient, not necessarily obedient through force, obedient through conditioning, conditioned to accept average, conditioned to fear discomfort, conditioned to consume instead of build, conditioned to seek entertainment instead of awareness. And perhaps the most dangerous conditioning of all is convincing people they are powerless. Because powerless people stop trying, they stop building, stop learning, stop questioning, stop imagining alternatives. That's why hopelessness becomes so useful to controlling systems. A hopeless population is easier to predict emotionally, but the people who eventually escape think differently. They stop asking, "What if I fail?" and start asking, "What happens if I stay trapped here forever?" That question creates urgency, and urgency creates movement. Now, escaping does not always mean becoming ultra-wealthy or disappearing into some fantasy lifestyle. Real escape begins psychologically. The moment someone regains control over attention, thinking, discipline, and direction, they begin separating themselves from systems designed to keep them passive. That's why awareness matters so much. Because once you clearly see the mechanisms shaping behavior around you, you can no longer move unconsciously through life. You start noticing distractions differently, culture differently, fear differently, social pressure differently, and slowly, your decisions begin changing. That's where real transformation starts. Quickly, not through motivation alone, not through empty inspiration, through rebuilding the way you think. And maybe that's the final truth behind why most people never escape. The system is powerful. The strongest prison was never physical, it was psychological, a prison built from fear, conditioning, comfort, and repetition. And the people who eventually break free are usually the ones who learned how to think beyond the walls before they ever tried climbing over them. Some people will hear this and immediately return to distraction. Others will never see the world the same way again. Decide carefully which one you become.